Welcome to the first video lesson explaining Agile project management. What is Agile family? So we have a set of frameworks like Scrum, test-driven development, feature-driven development, extreme programming, that is XP, uh, dynamic software development methodology, that is DSDM, scaled agile, DevOps, machine learning, ML ops, and Kanban. All these are different frameworks, uh, and everything comes under the agile family. Out of it, out of these, the most famous ones or the most popular ones are Scrum and Kanban, because these two are not domain specific. All others are primarily they're linked to software development. Whereas Scrum and Kanban, Scrum, even though it started with software development, now since it is not very domain specific, it started gaining momentum in other disciplines as well. For example, in construction project, during the design phase, people use Scrum extensively these days. It is used for shutdown projects also. And as and when a project reaches a major milestones, about to reach a major milestones, then people use Scrum for day-to-day monitoring and controlling. So Scrum is gaining momentum rapidly, especially with distributed teams working from different locations, etc. And it is not very software specific. So we will use Scrum to explain the agile frameworks. So we'll go in instead of touching upon various frameworks a little bit, we'll go in depth, we'll dive deep into the Scrum framework and try to understand how the different components work together. Then Kanban, definitely it is very popular. It is also not software specific. Kanban actually it started in the manufacturing, and then it gained momentum. So we'll be explaining Scrum and Kanban uh, in this video as well as in the upcoming videos. And when to use Agile? Agile is ideal fit for projects where the requirements are evolving and the technology is also very new. Especially when we work on new product development, the requirements keeps evolving. Nobody will be in a position to give the full set of requirements in one shot. So requirements will evolve. Sometimes the technology also can be very new. Now, these days, we have these AI projects coming in. And if it is true AI, there is a learning component. Also, it is an important element of every AI projects because it must learn. Uh, so Agile is a right fit for such projects where a learning curve is involved, and technology is very new. Requirements can keep on changing. Then Agile is the right fit. Then we have traditional project management. For example, if you get into the construction phase of a construction project, things cannot change because once the construction starts, once the design is approved, and once the construction starts, it is very difficult to incorporate changes. Then we need to follow the traditional project management only. Uh, the common thread that is connecting all these flavors of agile, that is like Scrum, TDD, etc., it, they all are iterative and incremental. That means You do a detailed plan for maximum next 30 days time. Then you work on it. At the end of that 30 days sprint or iteration, you get a increment of the product. Then we get into the subsequent iteration. So the product gets incremented across a series of iterations. Hence, we say that it is iterative and incremental in nature. Okay, so uh, yeah, so out of these frameworks, Scrum is the most popular one. And it has a set of ceremonies like the sprint planning meeting, daily scrum, sprint review, sprint retrospective. And it has a set of artifacts like product backlog, sprint backlog, and the product increment. And three roles. Scrum teams comprise of just three roles, that is the product owner, the scrum master, and the development team. It is very simple. Then agile project management, additional concepts like agile chartering. That is when we try to implement an agile project uh, in an environment where which is very much used to traditional project management. Then we need the organizational backing to implement or to switch to agile projects. For that, we start with creating a charter for agile rollout, uh, which is approved by the senior management and which is communicated top down in the organization. So that provides the sufficient support that is required for transitioning to agile from traditional or waterfall projects. Then one need to understand organizational change management, because when we switch from traditional project management to agile ways of working, then there is a big element of organizational change management associated with it. So one must be aware of those things. Then agile estimation is slightly different from the traditional estimates. In Agile, the fundamental thought is, or the thought process is, all estimates are wrong. So don't try to achieve too much accuracy into the estimation. Estimates, we get accurate estimates when the engineers provide us an estimate after working on it for some time. But at the same time, we will not be able to start work without kind of an estimation. So in Agile, we estimate using Fibonacci series or the t-shirt sizing, which I'll explain as we proceed. Uh, in Agile, always we start with the product backlog. Under the artifacts, we discussed about the product backlog. And then we elaborate the entries in the product backlog into detailed requirements. We call it as user stories. And the stories gets estimated. Weightages gets Fibonacci series like 0, 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, 13, 21 gets associated, gets allocated to the stories during estimation. And then when we call it as story points. Velocity is nothing but the number of story points we achieved in the previous sprint. So we might have planned for 10 story points in a sprint. At the end of it, we would have achieved only 9. Then we say the velocity is 9. So after a series of sprints, we get different velocities for each sprint. Then we can always take an average velocity. Using that average velocity, we'll be able to forecast the number of additional sprints required to complete the project. For example, if our average velocity is 10, and if you have another 100 story points to be completed, and if you can complete 10 story points per sprint, if that is the average velocity, Then we know that we need another 10 sprints to complete the remaining 100 story points. And when we start agile projects, one when we start with agile projects, all we have is the product backlog, one liner entries. So we need to estimate. Then we have to decide on totally how many sprints, each sprint, how many story points we can complete. And we define the roadmap of the project from start to finish, totally how many sprints. And at the end of how many sprints, we'll make a release to the client. At the end of every sprint, there is a demo to the stakeholders, but we may not do a release. But a series of sprints will end up in a release, and a series of releases will end up in the completion of the product. And then we have hybrid project management. That is when within the same project, we use both predictive and agile best practices together. Then we call it as hybrid project management. Anyway, we have detailed sessions coming on all these things. I'll elaborate these things in the upcoming videos. So in this video, we discussed about what is Agile family, and we said Scrum is one of the most popular ones, and Kanban as well because they are not domain specific. And then when to use Agile, requirements are changing, technology is very new, a lot of ambiguity. That is, then it is a right candidate for using Agile project. And all agile frameworks are iterative and incremental in nature. That means they have a sprint or iteration. At the end of the iteration, product gets incremented a little more. Here, the key thing is iterations cannot be more than 30 days time. And Scrum is the most popular one. And the ceremonies within Scrum we discussed, that is sprint planning meeting, which is a 7 hour meeting where we plan in detail uh, about the features that we will do in the upcoming sprint. Then we have daily Scrum meetings. There is a daily stand-up meeting of maximum 20 minutes for 10-member teams. Each member gets 2 minutes to talk, and they say three things like, what did I do yesterday? What am I doing today? And what are the challenges I'm facing? Then at the end of the sprint, there is a sprint review meeting where we really validate the output of the sprint and declare whether the sprint is successful or failure. Then after the sprint review, we have a sprint retrospective meetings where we discuss what all things we did right and what all things needs improvement, etc. And with all those learning, we get back into the next sprint planning meeting. And as discussed already, there are only three roles, that is a product owner, scrum master, and the development team. When we say product owner is the person who is the custodian of the product backlog and the prioritization of it, etc. So product owner manages the features of the product. Scrum Master's job is primarily is that of a servant leader, and Scrum Master ensures that the project is happening according to the Scrum framework. And then we have the development team. So within the team, we may have programmers, coders, testers, architects, etc. But in Scrum, everybody is known as a team member. Then we also discussed about the generic agile practices which will make the agile implementations successful, like agile chartering, organizational change management, uh, estimation using poker cards, and the user stories, story points, velocity, average velocity, roadmap planning, release planning, and hybrid project management. So these things we discussed at a very higher level, very high level. Now I'll come out with more detailed videos. The objective of this video was to just give you an overview of Agile project management. Thank you very much.